This is Mark Guerrero. Welcome to East LA Music Stories. My guest today is Stephen Chavez. He has an internet radio show, which is now a podcast, eastlareview.com, which is a really great thing that also documents the history of East LA rock. And his main interest is 60s East LA rock, you know. And so it's been a really wonderful thing for all of us. And he plays a lot of the music of the East LA bands on the station. He's got a lot of DJs. But Stephen also is a record collector who's got tons of albums and singles, 45s, vinyl. And he has most of the East LA releases. He started a band in the early 2000s called East LA Review Band, right? Just East LA Review.
That was it. Yeah.
And it featured a lot of the veterans of the 60s in East LA. So he's a real friend to East LA rock and East LA rock history. And he's also on here not only talk about all that stuff, but he was a fan. You know, he witnessed a lot of the shows in the 60s. He was a huge fan. Wound up in Vietnam, like many people did. But in the early 2000s, he attended a show that I was involved in that kind of triggered his whole eastlareview.com.
Right.
So anyway, and we also created or are in the process of creating a website, which is kind of a virtual East LA rock history museum. And it's called East LA Music Experience. And I'm kind of involved in that. And so is Mr. Guy Aversa, who's another friend of East LA rock history. We'll get into him a little later too. So Stephen, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for the introduction. And it's a pleasure being here. Thank you.
Well, you know, sometimes I start with the person's early life, but I'd rather get into some stuff first and then go back in time to the beginning. But let's start with how you got inspired to create eastlareview.com and the East LA Review Band. And I know how it happened. It was a concert that you attended in 2001 out here in my neck of the woods, Desert Hot Springs. It's right near Palm Springs. And it was a tribute to East LA music producer of the 60s, Billy Cardenas, who produced so many of the hit records by the East LA bands. The Premiers, the Blendells, et cetera. He worked with Cannibal the Headhunters, so many people. And he was having some serious medical problems. And so Chan Romero, the great rock and roll pioneer who wrote the Hippie Hippie Shake and who is a great friend of mine, he and I put this benefit together to raise money to help Billy's medical costs. So that event, the Billy Cardenas tribute event, was February 11th, 2001, and it took place at Hacienda del Desierto. And it was a gigantic, old restaurant bar with one of those great historic wooden bars, gigantic, like they'd make in the 40s.
Adobe floors.
Yeah. Anyway, ironically, not too long after the event, the thing burned down. So it doesn't even exist. But we had it there, and boy, we had a wonderful lineup. We had the Premiers, and we had, you know, 3 of the 4 original Premiers. Lawrence and John Perez and George Delgado. And we had Cannibal and the Headhunters, and it had, I believe, 2 surviving members, right?
Yeah, with Scar and Bobby.
Rabbit
and Scar.
Richard Scar Lopez.
Richard Scar,
And Robert Rabbit Jaramillo.
Yes.
And my dad, Lalo Guerrero, came and did a few songs acoustically. And I put a band together. In fact, it was my club band that came and backed me up on some of the Mark and the Escort stuff and some of my later stuff like On the Boulevard. And we had Chan Romero, the legendary Chan Romero, performed Hippie Hippie Shake and a bunch of stuff. I helped back him up with my band. So it was a wonderful musical event. Don Tosti, the legendary Chicano composer, uh, founder of the Pachuco Boogie Boys, and he had a great Latin band in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah,
He attended.
yeah.
And so how did you find out about this event?
I was at a radio station, KUCR, a radio at University of California, Riverside, and they had a flyer. It was blue, and I always grab flyers. I save everything, but I was surprised and excited, and I couldn't believe it. And I said, "What's this?" They said, "I just got it," and I took the information, and we made the trip down there. What was it? $10 to get in, or
Right. $10 per person, $15 per couple.
yeah,
Oh, we
yeah,
forgot to mention that Andy Tesso, the legendary guitarist from the Romancers and the Mixtures in
yeah,
the 60s, was in the backup band for the Cannibal and the Headhunters show.
yeah. The Huggies Bunnies author. I love that song, Mark. It's
I know.
"Get Your Baby" is another song that just I love it. It's pretty good.
Well, you love that whole period and it's very
Yeah,
special to you, and that's why you came to this event.
yeah.
But tell me how it inspired you to be there and see that show and what it led to in your life.
Well, first of all, when I saw the flyer, I couldn't believe that they were still around. Really, I hadn't heard nothing about them from uh 72 or 3 till now. And I couldn't believe it. I thought they were retired. So that piqued my interest. And I just wanted to go because these were heroes of mine when I was like 16, 15. These guys were playing the music and I was really heard it on the radio and then I hear it on stage. It was just I just wanted to see it again. We were missing the Blendells in that mix. That would have been fantastic too. But that was my time. That was I grew up in the time. It was I was there, and I thought the music was so good, so important, and I was really shocked to see the names on there. So when we got there, it was just a great show, really great show. Everybody got on stage. Everybody did I don't know if Scar and Bobby did the rowboat. Do you
Oh,
remember?
yes, absolutely.
I
Not
think,
only that, Billy Cardenas joined in the rowboat
oh,
right
I believe
across
you.
the
Something
stage.
happened. It was a fun time. And Art Hernandez had his display of posters and flyers and stuff. So
Mhm.
it was a wonder. We met Jimmy Mesa there also. Just kind of like I was shocked and I saw him, and then I heard the Montclairs, a band from uh, um, Claremont. The Montclairs were from Claremont. Okay, so
And the Claremonts were from Montclair,
hey,
probably.
that's it. So I heard the band and they played all the songs. They played "Where Lovers Go," "Huggies Bunnies," "Get Your Baby." They played "Farmer John." They played "Duffy's Blues." They were good, and I heard that, and then the show kind of inspired me to seek putting a band together. Well, seeing that show and going to the show and experiencing it was a great show. Um, I thought about putting a group together that could back up these musicians to play the songs that we wanted to hear. Uh, so that kind of came into thinking that these guys were still around. It wasn't the complete bands, but they sounded okay, and maybe we can build on this. That was it. I was never a musician. I didn't know nothing about backline, sound checks, none of that stuff. So I was interested in learning, and I hooked up with the Montclairs, which evolved kind of or broke away and became the East LA Review Band. And the band was the motto was true to the East Side sound. And that's all we played, Mark. Where Lovers Go, W's Blues, Farmer John, Get Your Baby, the Blendell stuff, uh, some Cannibal stuff, of course. Uh,
Any Midnighter stuff?
uh,
Whittier Boulevard?
we did Whittier Boulevard. Yeah, we did Whittier Boulevard. Uh, that's all once in a while. Diamonds and Pearls, all the R&B stuff is what we specialized in.
And so mention the members you got. You had Tony Carroll on bass from the Jaguars. a
Yeah,
popular
well,
60s
when we
band.
started, we wanted to have members of as many members of the band as we could.
From
So
the era.
from the era. So Tony Carroll from the Jaguars was like a gem. Albert Baron from the Counts, saxophone, another one. Art Hernandez, a lot of experience with the in crowd, and he could play that chukka chukka type of sound. You know, he knew what it sounded like. He was friends with the premiers, and it was just a great. And he had a great studio to practice in, with the back line and the drum kit and everything. So we had uh, Chicky Chicaris, Robert Chicaris on trumpet. Uh, we had um, Ray Ibarra on percussion. Rini Flores. At first, we had Adrian Sansoni from the Jaguars, which was friends with great guy. I loved him, and but he bowed out of early, and we got Rini Flores at that time.
Yeah, and we might mention that Tony Carroll, the bass player from the Jaguars, and Adrian Sansoni have since passed away.
Yes, both have passed away, and Albert Baron has passed away also. So we had Dan Cressy on keyboard and Maria Sandoval, a female vocalist, on vocals right there.
So how did you start booking the band?
Um, we started at car shows. That's where we started. Low budget, you know. That was the thing. We some of them we did free. Long Beach, a couple other places, and then you hired us for a concert in 2003, which was a big deal at that time. We got a lot of good exposure, and we started the concert, uh, uh, car concerts and car shows. And
Right.
at that point, we ended up doing the Orange Festival and Orange Blossom Festival in Riverside, um, and a couple other places that were keeping us busy. We had maybe 2 gigs a month, which was fine because we weren't trying to live on the action, you know.
Right. That 2003 event you were talking about was uh, at a minor league baseball stadium. It was pretty big.
Yeah.
And
The
I remember, I'll show the flyer here in a minute,
okay.
but I remember Little Willie G and the Midnighters were there.
All right.
Who else was there? Was there?
El Chicano. Uh, you had your band was there also.
Right, I think at the time we were called Mark Guerrero and Radio Aslan.
Radio Aslan, yes. You had Cauldron there. That was Flores from the Counts. I forgot his first name now. And
Was Tierra there? I don't remember now.
Jetta was there also, and the premiers were there with the East LA Review Band.
Right. I hope we didn't forget anybody, but I'm going to show the flyer anyway. So once
Mhm.
I show it, everybody will know who was there. But it was a lot. There were a lot of people there,
Yeah,
and
it was a nighttime show in the stadium.
it started in the afternoon.
And yeah, and carried into the night. It was a lot of bands there. I mean, that's what, 6 bands or so.
Right.
Uh-huh.
And that other thing, I played with the East LA Review Band. I was featured at one time at March Air Force Base. How did that
Yeah.
come about?
That was a return from Desert Storm. It was in the 90s. No, that was 2008. Was the first troops back from the initial deal. So March Air Force Base had a welcome back concert. I was able to talk them into hiring our band. It was a volunteer basis. You volunteered to come in. And they had a nice stage there, Mark, and the band performed, and they had a dance floor built there, and it was a great event. I
Probably
appreciate.
wasn't
Thank you.
videotaped, right? It wasn't videotaped, right?
No, I was just pictured.
We got
No,
some photos. Hopefully we can find one to show.
right.
Um, so we'll get into more detail with all this stuff too, but after that band formed and you did all that, and I remember also you started getting gigs for the Cannibal Headhunters guys and premieres too.
Yeah, yeah. Mark, I found out that sitting around for a promoter to come and get you was like useless. So I became a promoter. So I would go and get the place and maybe hire the place and then hire the band and then maybe hire another band to open for us. And I started doing that, making my own promotions. And one guy told me, "How come your band is opening before the main band?" I had Malo with Jorge Santana had a band, and my band was opening up before them, and his band was before us. And I told him I'm the promoter. Everything I say goes. I sit at the back line. I got the lineup. I got the stage manager, and we recorded a lot of the
I
stuff.
remember going to a show, I believe it was the premieres. Was it a restaurant called Zacatecas or something like that? What was it
Ye-
called?
That was in Riverside at Zacatecas, and that was the first time I had hired Bobby and Scar in the Cannibal and the Headhunters gig. They had a group called the Tribal Rockers, was backup band for
With
them.
Andy Tesso.
Andy Tessa was in
Now,
the
were the
band.
premieres on that one too, or is that another show?
That was another show, I
Did you
believe.
book the premieres too?
Yeah, yeah. I booked the premieres about 3 or 4 times. Got them at KUCR Radio Sound Music Festival, at the Benelli Park Music
Yeah, I
Festival.
went to that one too.
Yeah. So, and they were subject to be, I think, Art Hernandez with the in crowd kept them busy in San Gabriel also, and Mickey Lesbron.
And the Benelli Park one, you had Bertha Oropesa.
Yeah, Berta Oropeza and Vanessa Hernandez, her daughter, and
Premieres played
uh,
too.
Judith Murrow from Walla Walla, Washington, and Maria Sandoval. And we had them. We had Lawrence and Johnny from the premieres. They came on and did 2 or 3 songs. So Fine with the Girls, Farmer John, and Duffy's Blues. And our saxophone player nailed Duffy's Blues, man. It sounded so good, you know.
Mickey Lesbron was there. Did he only back up the premieres or did he play more with the band?
He backed up the premieres and then went on his own to do uh, a couple of blues songs, "I'm a Good Woman" and "Viva Tirado." He
Okay.
always plays that.
Right. So after coming to that show in 2001, you did all this. It inspired you to start booking the premieres and the Headhunters a little bit.
And actually play in front of our band. Our
Yeah.
band provided the backup, and we supported them. So it was all built in, Mark, and we didn't have to go begging anybody to do it, you know. So that kind of was the reason I was doing those things
Mhm.
uh, to get that.
And that led to eastlareview.com, the internet radio station. But before we get to that, let's go back in time in the way back machine and
Okay.
go back to how you got interested in all this stuff in the first place. You grew up kind of in South Central, right?
Yeah, basically South Central or Central South, near the downtown area. That was near the Coliseum
Right,
area, which is South Central.
right. And but how did you get interested? I think I know how. Was it the East LA Review album? What got you interested in the whole East LA scene?
Um, well, collecting records was one thing. So I was collecting records, the sachets, the Orlans, Jesse Belvin, records like that. And then we went to Flash, and they had a guy named Rudy Benavides. And he introduced us to a lot of the Chicano music that was being produced in East LA. And we started learning about the Midnighters, and Godfrey Kerr and Huggy Boy were playing all this music on the radio. So it piqued our interest in the East LA stuff. You know, at the time, uh, there was a culture shock going on. And I was starting to say, wait a minute, I live in a black community, but I'm Mexican. And East LA is over there. And I started seeing the enormity and the vastness of the world and how things are different and stuff. So I was kind of interested in the music that was coming out of East LA by Mexican Americans and basically my age. They were in high school, and I just was, and the girls. There was a lot of girls that followed the musicians, so that was always a great part too. But I was interested collecting the records and going to the concerts. When I saw the poster for the Shrine Auditorium, I was shocked again. And I said, "Oh, these are all everybody. Everybody's going to be there." And
Right.
Shrine Auditorium was only 2 miles away from
Okay,
my
now let me read this. So I have the flyer here. I'm going to show it
house.
on the screen.
Okay,
But it took place February 21st, 1965,
right.
West Coast East Side Review. And the bands that played there that day from 4 to 8 p.m. Um, the Atlantics, the Blendells, the Blue Satins, Cannibal and the Headhunters, Ronnie and the Casuals, My Bad Mark and the Escorts, the Heartbreakers, the Jaguars and the Solace Brothers, Little Ray, the Heartbreakers, the Little Heartbreakers,
Yeah,
um, the Medallions, the Midnighters, the Pageants, the Premiers, Four Queens, the Romancers, the Sisters, and the Slauson Brothers. So that was quite a lineup, and it
yeah.
was hosted by Dave Hull, the hullabalooer from KRLA,
Uh-huh.
and
Produced by Eddie Davis. What was the
Eddie
price to
Davis,
get in, Mark?
a
Under
dollar
five?
75, reserved $2.
Wow.
So you went to that event.
Yeah, we walked about seven people in the neighborhood, walked down to the shrine and went to the event. It was just fantastic. I was really, really, now I was seeing the people that I was listening to from the records. It kind of put a connection to it. And
Did most of the bands sound like the record?
yes, yes, I went to see Scar and that Cannibal and the Headhunters. That was and they performed Land of a Thousand Dances. They did the Out of Sight, the song where they spin around.
Right.
I believe they did the Rowboat. The sisters, everybody was just fantastic. It was great. And the shrine was big, and it had like a theater seating, very respectable, and
Right.
great show. Great.
The rowboat, for those who don't know, was
Oh,
during their show, Cannibal
uh-huh.
and Headhunters, they would be dancing and singing, and then they'd get down on the ground, sitting on their butts, and they'd be like one behind the other, interlocking, like
Uh-huh.
they're rowing a boat, and they would
Yes.
row, and they would scoot their butts along the stage, and the band would go across like a rowboat, and
Yeah,
the
they'd
place
have
would
to
go
jump a
nuts.
little bit, but they moved across the stage pretty
Yeah,
quick.
very smooth. And
Yeah,
I witnessed that myself when they opened for the Beatles at the
yeah,
Hollywood Bowl in 1965. They were one of the opening acts,
yeah.
and they did the rowboat. And I believe of all the opening acts, they got the most attention because everybody was there to see the Beatles, of course.
Of course, but
They
they
did
were
well.
hometown boys. I think it was good. It
Yeah.
was good.
So now you had attended other East LA venues before the Shrine, or was that the first?
That was the first event that I went to. That I saw the bands live. Yeah,
So you mentioned that since you were just a kid, how old are you at the time?
I was 15.
Yeah.
Uh,
So you would take the bus to these places, right?
I walk most
Well,
of
no,
the
but I'm
way.
talking about if you had to go
East
to East
LA,
LA,
yeah. Now, 4 months after that concert, Mark, there was a concert at ELAC, East LA Community Center.
the rock and roll
Now,
shows.
that was far away from the South Side. So myself and a friend of mine, Michael Montiano, took the bus downtown, got it all the way to Eastern, got walked through Maravilla. I didn't know where I was. He assured me it's this way. So we kept walking and got to ELAC and got to the show.
East LA College.
Yeah, East LA
That was
College,
one of the famous rock and roll shows.
Volume 2. It was in May of 65. I
And
was still
do you remember what,
15.
do you remember some of the groups that were there that day?
Oh, Ronnie and the Pomona Casuals. The Midnighters were the big one. Uh, the Blue Satins, the Sisters. Um, I think I can't remember any
Was Little
exactly.
Ray there?
Not at that show. He was at the next show.
Okay.
Uh-huh. Volume 3.
So that must have blown your mind again, right?
Oh my God. I'll tell you what, that inspired me at that point. That the shrine was the seed. This was the water because I was sitting in the auditorium. We got there late. I needed a quarter to get in, standing room only. We're in the aisle, and the Midnighters start Sad Girl with the drums. The girls pick it up. The saxophone plays. The girls explode. And then the band stage starts rising because they had a rising stage. And the place just blew up. When Willie G started singing, it was unbelievable. Goosebumps. That's the first time I had goosebumps. So what is this? You know? So I said, wow. And I equated the screaming of the girls to the Beatles that were on TV.
It was like that, yeah.
I leveled it out at that point, and I concluded that this was very important. And at that point, Mark, I kept that inspiration to until the show in Desert Hot Springs. That kind of like ignited it. Again, I said, hey, these guys are still around. And I kept all the records. And my wife told me, you always play all these records. I know a band that plays it. And that's why I went to see them. Um, it was a great time, Mark. We could talk about the East LA music experience to pay
Right,
tribute to that time,
right. And then we'll
which is
talk
what
about
we
that
did,
later.
because we haven't finished talking about it.
Yeah, we're gonna definitely get back to that later and talk about it in more detail. Um, but what other venues did you go to during that period in East LA?
The some of the venues on the west side or the south side or central was the Roger Young. We were commit thing. I went to the old Dixie once. Roger Young a couple of times. That was the main one. The Don Pulaski once. Don Polsky one time. That was the Bachelors Club used to do that one. Then the Big Union was in Vernon, so I went there a couple of times. Then we started venturing into East LA, and we went to the Kennedy Hall, uh, the St. Alfonso's, which was always can't get in. Uh, Little Union, which was always packed also. A Gigi Hall, we went by there a couple of times. They had a team club in Lincoln Heights that used to have some shows, pretty good shows over there. It became the Aviation Club in later time, but um, that's all the concerts I went to during that time. The Montebello Ballroom once went to that one. Uh, oh, and I went to the Huntington Ballroom. We took the
Huntington Park Ballroom. Right?
Huntington Park Ballroom. We caught the bus on Broadway and JF Martin Luther King. That's where I live. Down Broadway to Florence, down Florence to the Pacific, and we walked to the Huntington Park Ballroom. There was four of us. We were 15, 16.
And
I
that was a
believe.
show, that was a show that I was on too.
Yeah, that's
Was
what
the
I'm.
one with Little Ray and his review.
The whole review.
And my band at that time was the Men from Sound. And we
Oh,
played,
it wasn't the
no, it wasn't Mark and the
Escort.
Escorts. And
Okay,
we played 2 weeks in a row at the Huntington Park Ballroom, I believe. And
right.
both of them had Little Ray and the Men from Sound.
Yeah, he had a review.
That was probably pushing 19, probably 66.
66 is what I'm thinking. I was 16 at the time.
Yeah.
All grown up at that time. We had a pea coat on, the little watch hats, and we were like the jetters dressed by 66,
And weren't you called a jetter at that time?
Yeah, it was the young kids that were just not old enough to get into a lot of the places, But we were fanatics and fans and followed the music and stuff. And but the dress was like the peacoats and the plaid shirts, mainly America National Shirt Shop was
I
was the
remember that.
stop. And the garment district was another stop for
And the
everybody.
shoes, we used to get our shoes at
Oh yeah.
Flag Brothers downtown.
Oh
or
yeah.
Rogers.
Rogers was a suedes and
Yeah.
different color, bone
Suede
colored
shoes.
shoes, green suede, outrageous stuff,
With a little strap that goes across.
yeah. And the Beetle boots with the zipper in the back, or that was the Rolling Stones boots. The Beetle boots had the side
Zipper.
zipper, yeah.
That was more Flag Brothers, I think, had that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Tom McCann's and things of that. I worked at Hardee's shoe store for 3 years during the Christmas and summertime.
Mhm.
And
And where did you buy your records, by the way? You
um,
didn't come to East LA. Did you come to the Record Rack and some
I
of
went to the record rack once. That was it. That was in the theater, right?
it
In
was
the
right Golden Gate Theater.
Golden Gate Theater. I went to that one. There was another one further down by where the freeway is right now. I don't know if the freeway was there during that time. It was on Whittier Boulevard near Eastern. Was
Oh,
that?
well, the ones I remember, there was Story Music. There was the Record Inn and the Record Rack.
Yeah, the record
All
in.
within Whittier and Ford Boulevard right there. But
That-
further down was Sounds of Music in Montebello. You mentioned you went to that one.
How about the one Huggy Boys Theater was near?
That was
And
Record Inn, Record Inn.
Record Inn, and then the record rack. Those two I knew about.
But now I'm
America-
talking about the Sounds of Music. You mentioned it the other day when we
Oh,
talked.
that was
Montebello.
in Montebello by the high school over there. Sounds of Music was in, I believe, Paramount also. But we got it downtown. They had a record store called American Music, and we got a lot of there was a guy named Mondo that used to work there that worked at the record rack. So he would bring in the records. Hey kids, have you heard this one? I bought Come On Up. The Rascals had just released a great, but here comes Ronnie Reyes. Well, I know Ronnie Reyes now, but here comes the Impalas with their version, and sound wise, the Rascals got them, but it was the Impalas, and I had seen them at the shows, so I was collecting records.
Eddie Torres, the manager of the Midnighters, started his own label, Whittier Records. And I believe that Impala's record came out on that label.
No, the Impalas record came
Was it
out.
Chattahoochee?
Godfrey Kerr's record called KG.
Really?
Yeah,
That's
and
one
on
I've
the other
seen.
side was the Slauson Brothers.
Okay,
He would
that's it. But I think that might have been I think the original Impala's record came out on either Chattahoochee or Whittier.
Okay.
Maybe Godfrey put out this single.
Yeah, with he a double hit with the Slauson Brothers.
Yeah.
Supposedly on the backside.
Yeah. I think that was a different release. Same song, same recording, but I think it was another release. But,
Pirating back in the 60s.
But I know that Eddie Torres is the one that released that record.
I remember the Eddie Torres coming out with a new label. The Chattahoochee was the fantastic label to look at. A record collecting, Mark, you read the label, you read who wrote it, you read how long it is, you flip it over and see what's on the other side, and you live the experience. So I know a lot of the labels that came out, and when Eddie Torres came out with his label,
Whittier Records.
it was new. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was a new label. So we gravitated to that also. Reprise took away the Blendels, and did you play on Reprise?
No, we were on
Okay, so
GMP Crescendo.
the Blendels, and I believe the Premiers. Farmer John went to Reprise after.
No, Farmer John, the Premiers went to Warner Brothers Records,
Oh, okay.
and the Blendales went to Reprise, which was
Uh-huh.
a subsidiary of Warner Brothers Records,
Okay.
owned by Frank Sinatra.
Yeah, there you go. So that was good. He did a lot by starting his own label.
Oh,
Who
yeah,
was the star of that label, Mark? Frank Sinatra, right? Live
Reprise.
at PJ's, of course, all of his stuff. So he promoted his own
Yeah.
his company, you
And
know.
that became Neil Young's home label forever, Reprise.
Oh
He's
yeah.
still on it.
Wow, wow. Heart of Gold. That what's the name of that album? With
Um,
Old Man and
oh, that
Barney
was Harvest. Yeah.
Harvest album. Great album. Yeah.
And then my bass player, Rick Rosas, wound up playing with Neil Young,
I know,
starting in
man.
the late 80s and a lot in the 2000s. Uh,
Right.
Sadly, he passed away in
Yeah.
2014.
Yeah. They had a concert at the Wiltern,
Yeah, I was
Wiltern
there.
and
Was that
West.
the Buffalo Springfield reunion?
Yes,
I was there. Were
reunion.
you there?
Yes, yes. It was like magic. I never got any closer than the back aisle. And it was pretty crowded. A lot of important people there up front, and a lot of smoke in the auditorium. The place was like smog in there. It was like,
Yeah.
wow.
Ernie Hernandez and I, the drummer from Mark and the Escorts and Men from
Uh,
Sound and Tango, all my
uh-huh,
bands, we went to that show. Richard invited us, Rick Rosas,
uh-huh,
and we got backstage before the show, and we got to meet Richie Furay, which was really cool because I always loved Richie Furay.
uh-huh.
And we got to check out all the guitars, Stills' guitars, and it's kind of cool.
Yeah, they all had like three or four guitars set up,
On
right?
the back, there was like a rack with about 10 guitars for each
Yeah,
person.
unbelievable.
So anyway, you went to all these East LA shows. Any memories pop up? Like, did you get to see any uh mainstream stars, in those shows like the Olympics or the Ike and Tina Turner? So many people came to East
Yeah,
LA to perform.
yeah. There was two times I went to the big union, and they had the animals there. Van Morris, I'm sorry, Van Morrison from them.
Yeah.
I think it was only Van Morrison, and he
No,
played with
it was billed as them.
Oh yeah,
The
Bill,
band.
but I think he just played with
Oh,
one of the
really?
men.
Oh, I
I
didn't
thought
know.
it was that
Were you
way.
there?
Yeah, that was
I
I
wasn't there.
saw him. I saw. I didn't see Sonny and Cher or Cleo and uh
Caesar and Cleo.
Caesar and Cleo. I saw the guitar player. Uh,
Johnny Guitar Watson?
yes,
Wow.
I saw Johnny Guitar Watson perform with the Premiers, dude. The Premiers were performing with Johnny Guitar
Cool.
Watson.
Never heard about
Didn't
that.
know who he was. Uh, it was somewhere on the east side. Uh, that would be considered southeast side, that's Central
Yeah.
Avenue and stuff
It
like
was
that.
quite a scene because it was mostly East LA bands, but there would often be these mainstream stars coming in, like the
The
Righteous
Olympics was
Brothers.
another one we think of the
Huh?
early Olympics, the Olympics,
Yeah,
Hully Gully,
right.
and those things. It was great to see these bands. Brenda Holloway later on in time, she started coming around and
I
stuff.
saw I saw Billy Preston at San Alfonso's, the Turtles at the Montebello Ballroom.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Uh, we backed up Dobie Gray at the Big Union.
Uh-huh.
It was really cool. It was some of the Righteous Brothers used to come in and
Oh yeah, the Righteous. I saw the Righteous Brothers perform at the 5-4 Ballroom on 54th and Broadway. They performed. It was an upstairs venue, and um I didn't know who they were. It was just they were white, and that's what kind of like kind of. Then I bought their album, Mark. Time Out, I believe, or Forgot the name of the album, but I bought their album, Little Latin Lupin uh, forgot the other songs, but it was a favorite album, so I saw them one time. There were so many concerts at the same time, 2 or 3 gigs at the same weekend. 4 or 5 bands in each lineup. It wasn't just 1 or 2 bands. There was 4 or 5 bands set up, and we would go from Lincoln Heights, and then there'd be backyard parties or concerts that were available and stuff like.
Weddings, presentations.
Oh yeah, we'd get into those. So, the I went to the Alexandria Hotel
Oh,
one time. It was a 3-story
yeah. Yeah, we used to
event.
play there.
Yeah.
It was usually Latin bands.
Yes.
However, they started having East LA bands there
Uh-huh.
on certain nights, and I played
Yeah.
there several times.
Yeah. So that was great. They had the Jaguars there, uh, the Romancers, I believe, or Max performed there
Mhm.
also. So there were so many things going on, so many events, flyers, bands. I mean, there must have been a band in every neighborhood, Mark.
I know, it was unbelievable.
It was. And these guys were like pretty good in learning. They sounded okay for not going to music school and things of that sort. I mean,
And most of them sounded more than okay. They sounded great.
yeah, they were good.
It's
And they
kind
looked good too, Mark. They always dressed up
right.
like a band, they always looked sharp. And that's one thing I wanted the East LA Review. I went to the garment district and bought them all the same shirt, couple colors. And I said, you guys are going to wear this. You're not going to come in with the t-shirt here and a Hawaiian shirt there. Come on, guys. Oh, why? And they started looking like a band. They formed real good. They ended up to be very good, Mark. I really
Yeah,
appreciated what they did
yeah,
and
yeah.
what we did to kind of preserve the music a little bit. But it ended, and that was it.
So getting back to the rock and roll shows, did you attend several of them yourself?
I attended 2, the second and third show. So I saw the second show. The third show was the Progressions and Little Ray. That was the main song. I think it had the Emeralds doing Wooly Bully,
Mhm.
which was a lot of the songs in this concerts were current songs. I believe that concert was Treat Her Right by
Roy Head?
Roy Head had
I saw
just.
him at the Montebello Ballroom too. In
Oh
fact, we
yeah,
were Bill with him, I'm pretty sure.
he had just released the Treat Her Right, and the Impalas recorded it at that concert.
Hmm.
So they did it also. They did a good job, And so I went to the second and third one. Pretty good. I loved it.
Yeah.
And then life got in the way after that. Yeah.
Yeah, so Vietnam War was in full swing, and tell me what happened.
Well, started 66, 67. A lot of action going on. I saw the burning of the monks, when they were lighting themselves. I didn't know about Vietnam. I just saw that. And I knew I was going to get drafted. I did not want to go to college. So I enlisted on my 18th birthday while I was still in high school. And I joined the United States Air Force. They waited till high school graduation, and then I left to training school, boot camp, and technical school. I became a munitions specialist, explosive technician, and went to Vietnam. I was there about 14 months after graduation from high school. Spent a year there in Van Rang Air Base. I was on an air base, and we received explosives, bombs, armed them, sent them to the airplanes, hung them on the airplanes. And if someone came back with a hanger, we would have to take it off and dispose of the aircraft. So we worked there for a year, came back home, had a couple issues here stateside. By then I was 21, 21. um, and 2021. And I was having issues here in stateside adjusting. I had a PTSD issue that started during that period of time. I was trying to be helpful, courteous to a neighbor, passed away, got killed in Vietnam. The same person that I went to the concerts with, okay, the Shrine and the other concert, Michael. And he got killed in Vietnam. We were there at the same time. Didn't go to the funeral. Had to wait till I got home. Went to see the mom. Disaster, trying to be comforting to the mom, where when her son was murdered, she said, and killed. So I didn't have an answer. I felt guilty. At that point, I went out and volunteered for Vietnam again out of anger, frustration, and confusion. And they granted it. But they sent me to Thailand, Utapao, Thailand, where we were working. I mean, we worked 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, Mark. We worked. We were lucky to get a day off. So, and humping bombs on these B-52s and stuff like that. But Thailand was wonderful. By then I was 21, going on 22. So I had learned a lot. I enjoyed the countryside in Thailand, Mark. It's a wonderful place. Thailand and Italy. Those two places are wonderful places.
But when you were in Vietnam the previous year, whenever it was, even though you were on a base, the base was constantly being bombed, right?
Yes, the base was attacked 60, 64 days out of the year that I was there. We kept a little tally. Uh, 20 rockets shot discriminately into the area and stuff. Uh, we lost 5 people during that period of time. One hit the post office, one hit the barracks, one hit a plane, but it was just parked there. That was the only equipment that they hit. The rest of them just alert. We had to get alerted, spend the night in the perimeter, and then go back to work. It was
So when you got back, when did you get back from Thailand?
72.
And that's when you were out of the
I was
military?
I was out of the military and back.
So what was it like when you came back? The whole
It
story with
was
that?
it was strange. Um, there was I was asked about Evil Ways by Santana. And I said, Evil Ways is by Willie Bobo. And they said, no, no, you haven't heard Santana? I said, I haven't heard Santana. It was wonderful. The music had changed dramatically, more Latin, El Chicano Latin, everything, Latin bass, which was wonderful. But the old school stuff was kind of like kind of forgotten a little bit. Another song was well, it was Evil Ways was the main thing that kind of noticed the changes and stuff like that. It was good though. It was good stuff. Uh, Carole King's album Tapestry. I had never heard that album, Mark, until I got home. I mean, wow! It was just two of those albums, Santana's first album and the Tapestry album. It took me 2 years to actually uh, come across that stuff. So that was great. There was no jobs. We did our thing. We adjusted as we needed to. Went to school, got the money for going to school, ELAC and Cal State LA. Got part-time jobs with the city, and then finally landed a job um, at the post office as a part-time person. I got married during that time in 1974 to Juanita Palacios, and we've been married 50 years now. So
AKA Janie,
Janie,
as you
yeah,
can see
that's
in
a
the
good
corner of the
age.
screen there.
Yes, yes. She's she's been tolerating me, and during that time, coming back and dealing with adjusting to a job, she was very good at dealing with my stuff. She didn't understand. They didn't give us a manual of what's going to happen. And I give her a lot of thank yous for that, Mark. But I put my attention on work. I didn't have alcohol. I didn't have drugs. I didn't have women. I wasn't a musician. So I worked and I went to the post office and I tried to get a job. And 32 years later, retired from the post office. So that was pretty cool.
So that
And one child. And one child.
So that takes us back to you going to that event, the Billy Cardenas
Yes.
tribute, which got you to do the band, the East LA
Uh-huh.
band. And now talk about the internet radio station. How did that come about, and what happened?
Well, the band had imploded and stopped, and everybody went in different ways. And I met Frank Arzaga, Frankie Peterman. He was at KTLA or KCLA in Hollywood, and Bettelman, which was at KUCR radio. He was on at a certain time, Frankie. They would call me and say, "Hey, we're on the internet thing." I said, I can't go to Hollywood." He said, "It's on the internet." I said, "Okay, but it's not archived." And I said, "Well, why can't I hear it?" He said, "At 6 o'clock, you got to go to your computer and listen to it." And Bettelman's was at midnight to 2. And I couldn't get the convenience of listening to it. So I said, "Is it archived?" And they said, "No." So at that point, Mark, the convenience factor figured in. And I was saying, "Well, how am I going to hear this stuff?" So I kind of like, I don't know how or where, I'm not a computer genius, thought about a platform, and I didn't even know it was called a platform. Okay, can we do this? Can I put a song up? And some people hear it. And they said, "Yeah, you got a server and blah blah blah." So I went the route of getting a server, getting my own server, and getting a webmaster to help me construct something. And I wanted to pay tribute or show, share the music that the East LA Review played, and the music from the Shrine, and the music from the all and the history. I wanted to share it with everybody. That was it. And so we got Frank Arzaga, who was Frankie Peterman. We got Chico, who was Eric Monqueros. We got Howard Ing, which was El Chino. He went to Roosevelt. We got Beto Man, Roberto Tijerina, who's out of KUCR, and we got Crazy Chuy Hernandez from Texas. He was doing Tejano. We were trying to move different genres in there, and each of the DJs would do a show podcast, send it to me by telephone, and place it into a jukebox, and people would be able to click and listen to it at their convenience. So they would do a podcast at home, record it or cut and paste it, and send me the stream. So when I posted it on the show, is not live, but it was live when they did it, and it sort of mimics the Huggy Boy, Godfrey, old school lineup of playing 5 songs, talking about it. Casey Kasem was famous for that. Talking about it, giving some history, and then moving to the next stuff. So we've been on since 2007, doing this project. Recently, we've expanded to quite a. I'm sorry. Mark Guerrero is now on the show too, because you're cooperating, and I thank you for it. You do your podcast on your site and your Zoom shows, and you allow us to share it with our audiences on the eastlareview.com and on the elame.org.
Which we'll get into later about the ELA.
Yeah, so your interviews are on those shows too.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So all my Zoom shows, East LA Music Stories, and all my podcasts, Chicano Music Chronicles, are on eastlareview.com. So I appreciate that because gives all my shows a wider platform and a wider audience through your platform.
Yeah, and share it to more people so
Yeah.
that they can learn about some of this history and things of that sort. One other person joined us, Stormy E from Denver. And I reached out to her. We've had some from Texas and elsewhere. I had one in Hawaii. DJs can join us by sending me the link, and I put a platform for them to people to hear it. So Stormy has joined us from Denver, Colorado. Kind of gives us a link, a bridge to work with other people.
And then you had a Tom Modine on for a while. Tom
Al
Maureen.
Morin had his show, and we had um, quite a few other DJs, quite a few other ones.
Yeah, Tom Modine went to Garfield when I was there.
Yeah,
One of his older brothers is Richard Modine, who was in The Men from Sound and
right. And his dad was a very famous Chicano person, figure. Wrote the
Among the Valiant.
Among the Valiant. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a World War II veteran who wrote a book about, I guess, Chicanos in World War II.
No, basically the Medal of Honor recipients from the Civil War to the end of World War II. He covered all the Mexican American people that received the Medal of Honor.
Wow.
His son uh, picked up the baton and wrote all the Medal of Honors from Korea and Vietnam. He wrote a book called
Oh,
Honor and Discord
okay.
that covers everything from what his dad left off
Cool.
Vietnam. He was injured in Vietnam and did the writing like Raul did. Wrote a lot about while he was in the hospital during an injury and stuff like
Wow,
that.
wow.
But that inspired me. Raul Morin's book. I knew Raul Morin's book before I met Tom and Richard and them. Um, it was very historic, very important to learn about and history on that.
Very
Be
nice.
proud of, to be
Yeah.
proud of. And that's how I held the music, Mark. It was something to be proud of,
Yeah.
and that's all it was.
Well, that's why I started doing it on my website. I wanted to, chronicle the history, keep all these bands' memories alive and the music, and because it was a special period that was being forgotten, and
Right, right. You did a good job on that because when we get into the elme.org,
yeah.
much of your stuff and your collection was shared with us on that
So
too.
let's talk about it. So apparently you'd been thinking for a long time of making a museum for
Yeah.
the East LA rock history, but especially the 60s, right? Isn't that your main interest, right?
That was from 60 to 69
Right,
was
right.
my interest. Yeah,
So you were trying to do that, and as many people have found out that have wanted to do that, it's such a hassle. You got to get a building, and then all the
yeah.
insurances, and
Uh-huh.
there's so much expense and rent and whatever. So you came up with the idea recently of a virtual museum online,
Yeah.
and you talked to me about it, and our friend Gaia Versa, who
Uh-huh.
also has been chronicling the history of the East LA rock,
Right.
especially the 60s, on
Yes.
his blog, which is called, you found that East LA blog, right?
Yeah. You found that East LA sound.
Yeah, blog. And so he's been very helpful to me as well. He's loaned me some records. We've talked, and so I guess you came up with the idea of combining all our stuff and creating this online museum, and Guy and I immediately agreed. So you set up a beautiful website, and with all the bells and whistles, really cool stuff.
Yeah.
Books that open, the pages turn, and jukeboxes.
Yeah.
And you're using whatever flyers you want to get out of my collection and
Right.
website and stuff that Guy has and recordings. And it's already up and it's running. We're going
Right.
to keep adding to it. It's mainly about 1960 to 69, I believe, but we do talk about the pioneers from before a little bit, and we get into early 70s because that was a result of bands that came out of the 60s.
Right. The fruitation of all the work that was done in the 60s, it carried on to the 70s.
Right. So we're going to touch on that as well, but it's basically 60 to 69.
Right.
And we'll leave it to others to do the history of later on, you know.
Uh-huh.
This is what we lived, and we're interested in
I
chronicling it.
mean, there's enough information and items just to cover 60 to 69.
Oh, tons.
There was action, the Vietnam War affected, cause and effect on the musicians there. It took away 50% of the musicians, 50% of the venues and action that
Broke
was.
up the bands, broke up so many bands.
And then when they came back, they didn't want to perform anymore.
Yeah,
It's over.
yeah. So the name of the site is East LA Music Experience,
Uh-huh.
but you can get to it with just the initials ELAME.org.
ME.org. Uh-huh.
ELAME.org.
Which is the East Los Angeles Music Experience. We've tried to stay away from we had a discussion, yourself, Guy, and myself. We try to stay away from the museum idea, and
Right,
we put the experience in
right.
that
Yeah.
thing.
Well, a lot of museums are calling themselves Experience, like the one in Liverpool that I performed at with Jan Romero recently in
Uh-huh.
2018, I believe it was.
Uh-huh.
It's called the British Music Experience. And the
Yeah,
one up in Seattle that I've actually done a project with,
right.
what was it called?
Latin.
American Savoir exhibit.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's called what's it called? The Experience Music Project. So,
Okay.
a lot of museums are not calling themselves museum.
Right.
That's why we picked up this
I
idea.
think people get confused. If you think of museum, you're thinking a brick structure.
Yeah,
And we're virtual. And the idea of being virtual, Mark, one reason, and this happens, you had your collection. Guy had an excellent collection on all the music. You had a lot of the written experiences, the flyers, the band cards, the pictures. We were able to put together a very good exhibit from 60 to 69. But we each were working and doing the same thing. Combining together made it a lot easier to take what you had, take what Guy had, and you guys are experts in those areas. I had the webmasters is what I'm trying to get to. We each walked in to our lives. They crisscross at a certain time, and then it's available to do. This wouldn't have happened 5 years ago because the technology wasn't
yeah.
there. And I met my webmaster, Fernando Calderon, who actually put together the look and the bells and the whistles and the jukeboxes. He said, "Give me what you got." Now, we were the ones that fed him, but he would ask me, "What about this? How does this look? What do you want here?" But basically, his expertise helped us achieve that goal. See, we wouldn't have been able to do it separately. So I think together, I think it's a very good site. ELAME.org lays tribute from all the bands from 60 to 69. We're going to get into the 70s because you have
Right.
Tierra, El Chicano, Tango, Matumbo, East Side Connection. There's so many great bands that popped up after that.
Macondo, and they all had their roots, Yaqui, they had their
Yeah,
roots in the 60s.
yeah, all of
By the early 70s, we were in our early 20s. We were writing great songs, and thanks
them.
to Art Brambilla and various people, a lot of people got record deals.
Right.
Uh,
Did Art Brambilla sign El Chicano also?
no, he had nothing to do with them. He helped Yaqui get a
Yeah.
deal, La Tierra get their first record deal, and with me, I got signed to Lou Adler in 1971, right during the Tapestry period.
Uh-huh.
A single out produced
Well,
by,
that was a great label at that time
yeah,
too.
and I had a single
Now
release.
the Evergreen Blues Band,
Oh, yes. That's
who did
another
they,
evergreen blues of the 60s became Elijah in the early
Elijah?
70s. A
Yeah.
Montebello horn band, a great
Uh-huh.
multiracial group, killer horn band.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying, the groups of the 60s wound up having these other groups in the 70s.
Which we're
And
gonna have to
The Salas brothers became Tierra.
There it is. Yeah.
The
The
VIPs became
Midnighters.
VIPs became El Chicano. Maxi Baez of the Romancers formed Macondo.
Mhm.
Me with Mark and the Escortsmen from Sound wanted to put Tango with A&M and Solo Records.
You know, I used to go see VIPs at the Carolina Lanes over there by
Did they play there?
LAX.
I didn't know
They
they
were
played there.
playing there like a regular basis
As the VIPs?
as the VIPs.
Yeah, I used to go see the Old Time Religion there that became Yakis
Uh-huh. So we would venture all the way out to
by the
the
airport.
the airport to see them. They did a killer version of Ain't Gonna Eat Out My Heart Anymore.
The Young Rascals.
Bobby was on that Hammond B3, and Mickey, I was kind of into Wes Montgomery a little bit
And
at
so
that.
was he.
Yeah, he would play those octaves and stuff. It was just, I just went to see those guys maybe 3 or 4 times while they were there.
So
Uh,
that must have been right before Viva Tirado came out.
yeah, then they moved to the Kabukis on Crenshaw. There was a Kabukis right there on
I
Crenshaw.
think that's when they recorded Viva Tirado.
That's when they recorded Viva Tirano. Then they went to the Kabukis in uh, Eagle Rock, I
Yeah,
believe.
I used to go to that one. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Unbelievable. So yeah,
yeah.
so this is going to be a wonderful site. It's already running. It's already
Uh-huh.
great.
It's
Just gonna
free.
keep adding to it.
It's on 24/7. Anywhere you're at, you don't have to worry about what time zone you're in. And it's free and it's good information.
That's the
Really,
other good thing about a virtual museum is that it's
uh,
worldwide. You know,
it's
you don't
worldwide.
have
You
to
can
you don't
pause
have to
it.
go to a place.
You can read it again, you can listen to it again. And the music selection is really fantastic. It's really good. We're going to add to it, of course. We're going to add to this venture. But I think we started something that's going to be good for the musicians, for keeping the history alive.
Well, and you also have some stories on there, like the story about the Shrine Auditorium and
Yeah.
these things.
And the Zoom interviews you're doing now,
Oh
we're
yeah,
getting older. We're getting older, so it's good that you're uh, documenting a lot of this history and information now. You
and you
know,
have some of those Zoom shows on the website because when in other words, if there's a picture in a band called the Blue Satins, we can have my interview with Frank Mesquita of the
right,
Blue Satins. So you're
right,
putting the ones that tie into the '60s and
right.
what we're doing. So it's great.
It is. It is. So it's been a good time working with you. It didn't hurt. It didn't hurt. I think we constructed something that we wanted to and we're proud of. And we
Well, you're going to show some of those T-shirts.
yeah, I want to show you one. Can I do that?
Yeah, show several. You know, you might as well show all of them.
Okay. I wanted to show you that this one.
Oh, cool. That's the
Okay.
logo of the website. East Los
That's it.
Angeles Music Experience.
It's East LA Music Experience. We had that logo. Artists from Self-Help Graphics helped us out, Mark. I always like to work, or we always like to work within our community,
Right, right.
and he helped me on this one.
And that little spindle in the middle is the thing we put between the 45s to play the 45s.
Yeah, and here's another one. I use a spindle. Here's the East LA Review Internet Radio one. We have the hummingbird, Aztec hummingbird, and I took out the little round circles that they had and put in the spindle right there.
Oh, yeah.
You see the
Little
spindle
spindle.
on the bird? So
Yeah.
this was that one for the thing. And then getting to this one, I like this one. There's, of course, more bands that we could put in. I'm thinking of making a second one to include um, different bands that I didn't include here. Of course, I don't have the Midnighters, Cannibal, and the Headhunters in this one. El Chicano, Tierra is not here yet. So, I mean, we can fill up another.
Some of that, but that is kind of mid 60s. You know, it's not
Yeah,
getting.
getting there, getting there. You have Mark and the Escorts in there too,
Mhm.
and that's the
East Side
uh
Sound.
what you call it, the Whittier Boulevard.
Oh, yeah, yeah. When I see you have the East Side Sound, that's good.
Yeah, I put D in there. I had to do that. And then we have, I made this one because this is where I was inspired.
Rock and roll show.
The rock and roll show, and the albums are, they don't mean anything, but they're kind of famous, 64. I did those just for the heck of it. And here, check this one out.
That
You
was
don't
the
have
event.
this.
There
Do
you
you
go.
have this one?
No, I
This,
don't have that, but that's the thing we were talking about. So it's Tierra, the Midnighters, Little Willie G, El Chicano, Mark
uh,
Guerrero, and Radio Aslan, East LA Review,
the
uh,
premiere,
the premieres. Who else? I can't read that.
Cauldron, I think. I have to
Okay,
look.
Collagen and the best of everything.
Oh, the best of everything. That was a band from the San Manuel Indians up there. The
Right,
best of everything. Yeah.
right. So I should mention that I'm also working on a physical brick and mortar museum project.
Right.
It's going to open at La Plaza de Cultura y Artes next June, and that's near Olvera Street. It's a building right
Uh-huh.
next to Olvera Street.
A great.
Cultural center and museum.
Mm-hmm.
And the exhibit is going to be A Great Day in East LA. And that's a project that Piero Giunti started way back. And I was one of the first calls he made, and I jumped right on with him. And what we did is we interviewed well over 100 people, 150 East LA related artists. And we interviewed them. I interviewed them, and he videotaped them. And then he would take a portrait photograph of all the artists. He's a professional photographer, Piero. He's a
Right.
younger guy. And everybody's a younger guy compared to us.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's a great project. And we had one exhibit at Scripps College a few years ago. But this is going to be a major exhibit, and it's going to open in June of 2025. And so I am what am I called? My title is curatorial advisor.
Mhm.
So I'm helping collect,
Yeah, you go out and get the stuff, right?
and I don't have the ultimate decision what gets in and what doesn't. I have a say, but I just need to get stuff there. The co-curators are Piero Giunti and Jorge Leal, who's a PhD from UC Riverside. And so we're all collecting things for the museum. And you loaned us a ton of 45s and albums, and I'm sure a lot of them are going to wind up in the exhibit. Thank you for that.
Uh-huh. Thank you. I appreciate you coming down and checking it out because I have these treasures, and I like people to come to know what they're looking at and stuff. So you were able to get a few and some album covers. I had a few flyers, but you have far more. I collected a few here and there, but
Right.
I appreciate the opportunity to participate in the exhibit. I
Yes.
did see the photographs and portraits that were from
Oh, great
Cal
portrait.
State. Beautiful. That's
Yeah.
what attracted me to it too. Is just so beautiful. I believe they were black and white.
Right. Oh, yeah. You guys, the public can see some of these photographs. What we would do is we would take, Piero would take a portrait photograph of the artist, and then he and I would pose, or I would pose with each artist as well for my own needs. And he would,
Right.
sometimes the two of us would pose. And so anyway, there's a page on my website. If you go to my website, markguerrero.com, and you go to the miscellaneous writings category on the menu and go scroll way down, there's a story about the Great Day in East LA project, and it's got a ton of those photos with me with these various artists, tons of them, and they're beautiful photographs.
Right.
And they're going to be blown up really big
Mhm.
at the exhibit. Many
You
of them.
had Redbone in there and quite a
Pat
few,
Vegas.
Pat Vega and stuff.
Yeah, but so many people.
Yeah, Mickey showed up.
Including, well, one of my purposes when Piero and I got together was I was the one delivering the older artists from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and he handled the younger artists that he had more contact with and more knowledge of. So it was a perfect partnership. He took care of the younger people. I took care of the older people. But I got Trini Lopez to be interviewed, and photographed, Chan Romero, you
Uh-huh.
know, a lot of the old guys from the.
How about Let's Dance? What's his name? Chris Montez? Did he come? He was
No,
he
we
come
haven't
by?
gotten Chris Montez, but I have a show on my Chicano Music Chronicles podcast you can get to from my website.
That's a good interview, yeah, with Chris Montez. I
Yeah, what
enjoyed
a
it.
story
Yeah,
that is. What a story
yeah,
that is.
yeah.
But so that's about it. You said you remembered the Morin that wrote that second book?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Eddie Morin
Mhm.
wrote Honor and Discourse,
Okay.
and
Mhm.
he's the author of that book. And I didn't mention Jimmy Mesa being part of the East LA Review Band for the inception when we first started.
And back in the 60s, he was in the Atlantics,
Yes,
which
yes.
was a group managed by Billy Cardenas. He managed so many groups back then.
I collected most of the 45s that these bands put out. Gaia Versus collection was better than mine. Okay, I recognize excellence, you know. And I said, Guy, can you share this with us? Mark, let's put this all together. And we were able to work together very easily and got together this site. I hope everybody enjoys it.
So be sure to check out markguerrero.com, check out eastlareview.com, check out, you found that East LA
Sound.
Sound blog, Gaia Versus, and of course, elame.org.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Uh, and come to the exhibit next June at La Plaza de Cultura y Artes, a great day in East LA. Thank you, Stephen, for doing the show. It was great. Appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Mark, and keep up the good work. These Zoom, I've enjoyed all the Zoom shows. You've shared them with our radio station, and I thank you and appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, man. I'll see you soon. Take care.
Okay, bye bye.